Chapter 38, Provocation. At 8:30 in the morning, Su Yuanci went for rounds on time. In the VIP double room, Fu Jingzhou sat on the edge of the bed, and Su Ruihe was lying in Fu Jingzhou's arms like she had no bones. Seeing Su Yuanci coming in for rounds, Su Ruihe not only didn't sit up but instead curled up in Fu Jingzhou's arms. Her voice was sweet and charming as she looked at Su Yuanci. "Cousin, my arms and legs still hurt. Brother Jingzhou massaged me all night, but it didn't help. Cousin, do you think I should undergo a more detailed examination?" On another hospital bed, Tang clicked his tongue in an unclear manner. If Su Ruihe didn't catch the provocation in her eyes, she really looked like a naive little sister complaining to her cousin about the pain. Su Ruihe's intention was to use this incident to show off that Fu Jingzhou was hers. Fu Jingzhou's true love was for her, Su Ruihe. However, what Su Ruihe didn't expect was that Su Yuanci remained expressionless throughout, showing no reaction to her provocation. It was as if she, Su Ruihe, and Fu Jingzhou could go to the bridal chamber right in front of her without causing her to even raise an eyebrow. This situation was not lost on Su Ruihe, and even Fu Jingzhou noticed it. His intention was to provoke Su Yuanci with Su Ruihe's presence, to make her jealous, and bring her back to his side. But Su Yuanci was cold-blooded enough to not take the bait at all. Seeing Su Yuanci's lack of reaction, Su Ruihe glanced at Fu Jingzhou, whose face was dark. "Sister, Jingzhou said last night that once I'm healed, he'll hold a wedding for us. Sister, you must come." Su Yuanci irritably lifted her eyelid. Already feeling tired, this annoying fly had been buzzing in her ear since early morning. Su Yuanci was in a bad mood, so her tone wasn't great either. "It's just a wedding. How many women in the world don't get married? Does my cousin have to show off every time she sees me?" Su Ruihe. Su Yuanci didn't even glance at Fu Jingzhou the entire time. After examining Su Ruihe's condition, Su Yuanci turned and came over to Tang's side. Several minutes later, Su Yuanci left the ward and returned to the department 308. After Su Yuanci left, Liu, who was sitting on the sofa, lazily raised his gaze and glanced at the couple cuddling across from him. Mr. Fu and this young lady seem to have a good relationship. Fu Jingzhou looked over, and Liu lazily leaned his head, then added, "Since your relationship is so good, why not book a separate room? This way, Mr. Fu and this young lady can do whatever they want without worrying about others being present." Hearing this, Fu Jingzhou pushed Su Ruihe away and sat down on the sofa. "Liu, you're joking. I told you yesterday that the hospital is short on beds lately, so it's only a last resort for Miss Ji and Ruihe to share a room." Finishing. Fu Jingzhou looked at Su Ruihe and continued. "Also, as an engaged couple, when the fiancé is injured, it's reasonable for the fiancé to accompany and care for her in the ward. A playboy like Mr. Liu who spends all his time playing games and enjoying life might not understand such feelings." This statement carried a sense of sarcasm. Liu's lips curled up slightly, and his pitch-black eyes met Fu Jingzhou's gaze. He replied with a half-smile. "I indeed cannot understand it. Mr. Fu sweet-talks a naive young girl on one hand and is affectionate with a tea girl on the other. Such behavior, I really can't do it." The quiet hospital room suddenly became tense. Fu Jingzhou's fingers tightened silently. He glanced at Tang on the opposite bed and sneered. "I'm no better than Mr. Liu. While I'm marrying Miss Su, Mr. Liu is entangled with his ex-girlfriend. With such actions, how much more noble can Mr. Fu be compared to me?" Listening to this, Liu didn't get angry. Instead, he calmly said, "If Mr. Fu could sell Hualin Hospital to me, I wouldn't need to pretend to visit patients just to get a glimpse of my wife." As his words landed, the room fell into temporary silence. Su Ruihe leaned against the bed, watching Liu Yu defend Su Yuanci both directly and indirectly. She clenched her teeth in jealousy. After a couple of seconds, she composed her expression, turned her head towards Liu Yu, and softly said, "Liu Yu, hasn't my sister told you about my identity?" Liu Yu raised an eyebrow and looked at her. Su Ruihe put on a delicate expression, bit her lip, as if hesitating about something. After a moment, she finally spoke. "Liu Yu, you've probably heard that my sister's parents are no longer here. My parents and I are my sister's only family. Logically, when she gets married, our whole family should gather for a meal. But for these many days, my sister hasn't mentioned this matter or told us about her marriage to you, which shows." Her voice paused for a moment, as if she was hesitating. She timidly looked at Liu Yu and continued. "In my sister's heart, your marriage doesn't really matter to her." These words were like a slap to Tang even though he was just an outsider. Liu Yu's expression remained unchanged, but his eyes had turned ice-cold long ago. "Is that so?" He spoke casually, like he was addressing garbage, then glanced at Su Ruihe. "Miss Su has also never mentioned to me that she has a sister. Throughout all of Xiangcheng, it's common knowledge that my in-laws have only one daughter, Miss Su. As for you, Miss Su, you're just someone who shares the same surname as her, but you're essentially a stranger." He continued, unfazed by Su Ruihe's shock. "I haven't had time to develop a relationship with Miss Su. Why would I waste my time on people who are neither here nor there?" Tang stifled a laugh and mentally applauded Liu Yu. That slap he delivered was resounding indeed. Unfortunately, Su Ruihe had no choice but to endure this humiliation. Who made her status so low, with no right to even speak in front of Liu Yu? Liu Yu's face remained unchanged, but his eyes had turned ice-cold long ago. "Is that so?" He spoke casually, like he was addressing garbage, then glanced at Su Ruihe. "Miss Su has also never mentioned to me that she has a sister. Throughout all of Xiangcheng, it's common knowledge that my in-laws have only one daughter, Miss Su. As for you, Miss Su, you're just someone who shares the same surname as her, but you're essentially a stranger." He continued, unfazed by Su Ruihe's shock. "I haven't had time to develop a relationship with Miss Su. Why would I waste my time on people who are neither here nor there?" Tang stifled a laugh and mentally applauded Liu Yu. That slap he delivered was resounding indeed. Unfortunately, Su Ruihe had no choice but to endure this humiliation. Who made her status so low, with no right to even speak in front of Liu Yu?